All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Amazing show for you guys. Lots of twists and turns today. Number one, we are going to have David West on the program in the second hour with us. He's an NBA legend, and he's coming into the studio, doing the second hour with us, and then doing the conversation with me. He's now part of a new basketball league, and so we're going to talk about that as well. He's a huge progressive. So number two, TYT Investigates broke a huge story about the shooting in South Bend and the allegedly racist police officer involved. You will see that the allegations are pretty clear a little bit later in the program. Number three, we told you justice was coming. Well, it is here today. Another Just Democratic challenger has been announced. He's going to be on the program. His name is JAMAAL BOWMAN. He will be on the program in about half an hour. And he is running against ELIOT Engel in New York. ELIOT Engel is one of the leaders of the Democratic Party. And he has voted for a lot of wars and a lot of banking deregulation. So this is a significant shot across the bow. And now the real primaries have begun. So it's a big story, and we have the challenger with us in just a little bit on the program. And then don't forget, we're all going to Miami. Well, almost all of us. You want to get Anna to Miami, tyt.com/yes.
You want to get Anna to Miami, come on. Come on.
Okay.
I never knew I would want to go to Florida this desperately.
I know, it's funny, right? tyt.com/yes is the way of chipping in a little bit to the Young Turks. Obviously the issue there is resources. We appreciate it anytime you do it, but in this case too. I'll give you more updates on Miami in the second hour. And now the biggest twist of all, later in the program, I will agree with Ben Shapiro. Okay, God help us all. Let's see how that turns out. Okay.
That should be fun.
Yes, well, depending on your definition of fun. All right, but first, war.
No, we're gonna get to war in just a second.
Oh, you want to talk about Emma?
Yeah, first I want to talk about someone who I love and adore, Emma Vigeland. So Emma Vigeland, as you guys know, does excellent reporting. And recently she covered a story that I want to make sure you're aware of and you check out on the Rebel HQ channel. It's about Mount Air, which is one of Donald Trump's biggest campaign contributors. In fact, fifth largest contributor in 2016. Emma found that this company, which is a chicken producer, has been contaminating water in local areas. It's headquartered in Delaware. Mountain Air Farms, Sussex County chicken processing plant has been spraying contaminated waste haphazardly into hundreds of acres of farm fields in Sussex County for an untold period of time. And here's a little taste of Emma's reporting on it.
That they wanted the signs taken off because it's causing a problem with the real estate. Why did they put up no fishing, no swimming, don't eat crabs, and don't swim? Why? Because it's all cancer. The whole area where those signs were. And the realtors took a fit. They took them down. I don't know how the cancer is now, but it sure didn't disappear overnight.
So the well water has been completely contaminated. This is a story that has not received any attention from the media, and it's because of you guys and the support that you've given TYT that we were able to send Emma there to cover this story. So please check it out.
Yeah, so just one quick thing on it. Look, this is why the Republicans push for deregulation. It's not to help you and your family, it's to help their corporate donors. This is the fifth largest donor to Donald Trump. So if regulations protect you and your family, well, just get rid of them. Get rid of them, and let them spread chicken poop, which actually kind of makes sense for Donald Trump, because that's another word for coward that runs, right? Is chicken crap, and another version of that, as you guys know, and that's the problem here, and that's the problem with Donald Trump overall. But really, in all seriousness, the major problem here, as in almost every story, is systemic corruption. If you allow private corporations to buy our politicians, of course they'll purchase them. They'd be crazy not to. They save a lot of money that way, but it's you and your family that's gonna deal with the cancer, as that lady in Delaware said.
Yeah. All right, you ready to talk about war?
All right, let's go to war. Or let's not, please,
Yeah.
in this case.
The Trump administration has further escalated tensions with Iran, and the conflict is now coming to a head as the administration has ordered another 1,000 troops to the Middle East and has vowed again that Iran will not be allowed to obtain a nuclear weapon. Now, we've said on the show multiple times, the best way to ensure that Iran doesn't obtain a nuclear weapon is to remain in the Iran nuclear deal. But Trump has decided to pull out of that, of course. The additional 1,000 troops, according to the New York Times, being sent to the region comes on top of 1,500 dispatched in May. They will be used to mainly surveil Iranian activities and protect American forces already in the Middle East. The Pentagon has considered plans for deployment of up to 6,000 additional troops. This is a disaster. And it seems like we're moving very quickly toward the direction of war. But mind you, Trump is still kind of holding on to this idea of renegotiating the nuclear deal. He's being pushed in the direction of war by people like Lindsey Graham, John Bolton, Mike Pompeo. But there have been a number of conservative, talk show hosts on Fox News of all places who are trying to get Trump to rethink what he's being pushed toward, right?
Yeah, and even some otherwise loathsome Republican congressmen actually standing up and doing the right thing here. Look, I'll always take yes for an answer. So if we have allies who we normally do not like, but that are trying to help prevent a war with Iran, fantastic, definitely will take it. So before we get to those guys, look, this is the main problem with Donald Trump being unintelligent. So if you want to start a war, it's super easy to do it. Because yes, he does have that instinct of I don't want to get bogged down in the Middle East, but he also has the so-called instinct of I'm going to be tough, I'm going to be strong. Don't let anybody accuse me of weakness. So they use that and they press on that button, and it's very easy to do. And they say, oh, Iran attacked us. Now that's not true. Pompeo is flat out lying. So some of it was misdirection and not necessarily true. Now he's gone as far as clearly, patently, obviously lying. So we'll get to that in a second as well. And so, and he's not bright enough, Trump's not bright enough to realize that Pompeo and Bolton are warmongers. Everyone else on the planet knows that, but Trump's so unintelligent and so unmoored from the facts and doesn't know any politics at all. So he thinks like, oh, these are honest actors and they say Iran attacked us, what can I do? I just show how strong I am. And the more troops you put right next to Iran, the more likely it is that there's going to be some sort of conflict. And then once that happens, they've already said the red line is attacking any American ships or American personnel. Now, you think Bolton and Pompeo aren't going to put some American soldiers in the line of danger, hoping that they get attacked? If you don't think that, you don't know anything about John Bolton.
In fact, reporting indicates that, and I'm talking about reporting from various sources, including the New York Times, indicates that Iran has been very careful to stay away from anything related to the United States. So stay away from the US military, stay away from any type of US ship. And they just don't want to cause any type of accident or any type of mistake that could be misconstrued as an act of provocation, which would then give the Trump administration more of an argument to go after Iran militarily. Now, we're gonna get to the members of the right wing who are against going to war with Iran, but before we do, I wanna just go to a quick video featuring Tom Cotton, who also absolutely loves going to war. Take a look.
What kind of response is warranted?
Well, Iran for 40 years has engaged in this kind of attacks, going back to the 1980s. In fact, Ronald Reagan had to reflag a lot of vessels going through the Persian Gulf and ultimately take military action against Iran in 1988. These unprovoked attacks on commercial shipping warrant a retaliatory military strike.
You're comparing the tanker war in the 80s to now and saying that that's the kind of military response you want to see?
We can make a military response in a time and in a manner of our choosing, but yes, unprovoked attacks on commercial shipping warrant a retaliatory military strike against the Islamic Republic of Iran.
So let me be clear, we talked about that oil tanker and how it was allegedly attacked by Iran. The US government has really failed in providing real evidence for that. They showed a grainy video. They then later released some photos indicating that no, these photos actually go against what the Japanese are saying about their oil tanker and how it was attacked. Remember, the Japanese believe that their oil tanker was attacked by a projectile. Whereas the Trump administration originally said, well, it was because of mines, and they made it appear as if the mines were somehow implanted underwater. Now they're saying it was not a projectile and it was a mine that was implanted above water. But the stories keep changing. The evidence is minimal and isn't even really reliable, to be quite honest with you. And so to hear Tom Cotton regurgitate that talking point, I guess should be expected, because he's just like the Lindsey Grahams of the world, who gets funded or had been funded by weapons manufacturers, by private military contractors, and they love going to war. So they're gonna push us in that direction.
So this, Tom Cotton's very squarely in the neoconservative hawk portion of the Republican Party. He's a younger version of Lindsey Graham. There isn't a war that he doesn't want to make love to. He's a terrible, terrible guy. And he's the one that betrayed America by writing a letter to the Ayatollah and telling him to not listen to our president when it was President Obama. So that's who Tom Cotton is. And so now let's talk about the good guy Republicans, and shockingly they exist in this case. So Matt Gaetz, of all people, one of the worst people in Congress, is actually on the right side of this issue. He's actually working with Ro Khanna. He's working with Ro Khanna to say you are not allowed to use military force here. We did not authorize this back in 2001. He's on the right side of this. Rand Paul is on the right side of this. Now, you might not be surprised, because Rand Paul's a libertarian and he doesn't want war, and he doesn't want the executive branch having this kind of power. But that's all in theory. Rand Paul, at the end of the day, always votes with Trump and always bows his head. But for the moment being, in the early stages, Rand Paul says, I can tell you explicitly, you have not been given power or authority by Congress to have a war with Iran, and in any kind of semblance of a sane world, you would have to come back and ask us before you go into Iran, he told Mike Pompeo. Now, that's a great quote. I see people think we're biased. We're not biased. All we care about is which side are you on the policy issues, right? So if Rand Paul and Matt Gaetz agree with us that war in Iran would be a disaster, well, that's a no-brainer. But still, and a lot of Republicans very, very, very often don't go on the side of the no-brainers. So here, I'll take it, and good action by them. And then even Tucker Carlson getting involved and saying, don't do it. And then he references that Pompeo might be misleading you, which we're gonna get to. And then I'll tell you the quote from Pompeo that is definitely a lie.
Right, and I just wanna give you a little more context into what Rand Paul was responding to, because the Trump administration is arguing that they can move ahead with military action against Iran without even dealing with Congress. And what they're doing is they're citing a 2001 congressional bill that greenlit America's military response to the 9/11 attacks to strike. So they're using that as an example of, we don't even need to get approval from Congress. We're gonna move forward based on what Congress had done back in 2001. Which, by the way, this is why it's important for Americans to not sit back and allow Congress to fearmonger you into, loosening our system of checks and balances, because they gave the executive branch way too much power in that case. Now, with that said, I do want to go to conservatives in the media and what they have to say about it. Trish Reagan, who is a Fox Business host, and you've probably seen her on Fox News as well, had an interesting way of speaking directly to Trump, okay? But she had to spin this in a way that would really resonate with him. So take a look at what she had to say.
The Iran conflict will prove to be a real test for Donald J. Trump. He must follow his instincts, and he must stay far away from the noise Iran is trying to make. For now, he should resist military action and sanction, and sanction some more.
Okay, so the weird baby tone, she's talking to a baby, it seems like, but she kind of is, yeah. But notice, I don't know if it was subtle, but she framed it in a way that makes it seem like Iran is trying to drag you into war, right? She's not gonna blame the Trump administration. She's not gonna go after Bolton. She's not gonna go after Pompeo. But she did go after Iran to make it appear as if Iran is trying to drag Trump into war, which is not the case. But I don't care. She's doing this as a way to persuade him to avoid military action against Iran.
Yeah, it's almost like Nancy Pelosi saying, well, Trump wants to be impeached, so don't give that to him. So Trish Reagan's like, Iran wants to be invaded, so don't fall into that trap. Great, I'll take it. That doesn't make any kind of sense, but I'll take it.
Yeah, so let's hear a little bit more from her segment.
There are, remember, politically motivated, self-interested people everywhere, including in America. And there are people in America that would like nothing more than to see us engaged in a war with Iran because they know war could very well spell the end of Trump 2020.
So to give you some more context, again, she was careful to avoid going after the war hawks on the right. She was careful to avoid going after Pompeo and Bolton. She tried to make it appear as if Democrats are the ones goading Trump into invading Iran, which is of course not the case. But again, if this is the strategy she's using to persuade him to avoid military action, awesome.
But look at the conversation that we are constantly having around Trump. One side is trying to trick him by saying, now they think you're weak. You should be strong, baby Trump. And the other side says, no, baby Trump. No, the Democrats in Iran are trying to trick you into invading Iran. That would end your chances. Baby Trump, don't do it. I mean, he's such a simpleton that they have to talk in these ways. And we're all on pins and needles, like who's going to be able to better manipulate the idiot president? And that's the conversation we're having, and the whole world hinges on it, because this would be a massive and disastrous war. So now, finally, we get to Tucker Carlson, and then I'll tell you Pompeo's lie that everyone, including Tucker, is mad about. Let's watch.
So far as Iran has denied any of this, some allies are skeptical as well. The United States narrative is being questioned, even in Japan. That's the home country of one of the stricken tankers. Japan says it's not convinced that Iran is responsible for what happened. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says, in fact, the proof of Iranian involvement is, quote, unmistakable. Of course, this is not the first time the Secretary of State has expressed total confidence in the sinister intent of a Middle Eastern country. Colin Powell made a very similar case to the United Nations 16 years ago about Iraq, and we're still paying the price for that misplaced certainty.
So yes, excellent. And so people say, hey, you can't compliment Tucker Carlson, he's a white nationalist. Yeah, I know. Take yes for an answer. If he's against war with Iran, he is correct on that issue. So I'm happy to have his support on this, because I got news for you progressives. Donald Trump isn't gonna listen to us, but he might listen to Tucker Carlson, and he might listen to other people on Fox News. So there's two lies. The first one that Tucker's referring to is one we've covered already. So they say, oh my God, the Iranians came in the middle of the night and they removed their second mine because they had, it had not exploded. Yeah, while the whole world was watching a tanker that is on fire, the Iranians decided to dress up in goofy outfits, okay, and pull up next to the boat and go, oh, I guess this is the mine we left behind. We will now take it. Except every witness says it wasn't a mine. It was something that came from the sky. So it was a missile. And so when we say, oh yeah, they planted that bomb earlier and then they came back to the scene of the crime to take away the other mine, it is a comically bad storyline, not backed up by any of the witnesses. But that's actually not the big lie I'm referring to. That one we've covered. The second one is Pompeo now comes out and says, oh no, we don't have to ask Congress to start a war, even though the Constitution says you have to. He says, because no, they authorized it already back in 2001. But wait a minute. That authorization of force was against Al-Qaeda and anyone helping Al-Qaeda. That's why we went into Afghanistan. Now, that's why that part made sense, because Al-Qaeda was based in Afghanistan and the Taliban was protecting Al-Qaeda. Now, then they stretch it to Iraq, and they had to lie about that. Dick Cheney said, oh, Mohammed Atta went to the Czech Republic and met with Al-Qaeda. Total lies, lie on top of lie on top of lie. And the media did not check that nearly enough back then. Iraq had no connection to 9/11 or Al-Qaeda and hated Al-Qaeda. But Iran hates Al-Qaeda even more. Iran is Shia, Al-Qaeda is Sunni. They're both fundamentalists and they despise each other. They've been battling each other for decades. So to say, and Pompeo now literally says that Iran is working with Al-Qaeda. What a preposterous lie. What an insane lie. Like, for example, you might say, hey, I hate the Soviet Union under Stalin, he's a terrible madman, and I hate Adolf Hitler and the Nazis in Germany, well, that's both very logical positions to have. If you said in the middle of World War II, as Hitler is destroying Stalingrad, that the Stalin and Hitler were working together at that time, well, it would be 100% untrue. They were mortal enemies. Now, could they have worked together, etc.? In that case, actually, it's more likely that they could have worked together than having the most fundamentalist Shia and the most fundamentalist Sunni working together. Iran has nothing to do with Al-Qaeda other than the fact that they hate them and oppose them. So if you're a journalist, look, I'm not asking for too much. You've got to do at least as well as Tucker Carlson. Because in the beginning, they reported that the eyewitnesses on that ship all contradict the Trump administration's line on it. But since then, the New York Times and every other paper that I have read, I've now read dozens of articles, none of them go back and allude to that. They just say the Trump administration alleges that the Iranians attacked the ships, alleges that the Iranians attacked the ships. This is the same exact trick they used during the Iraq war. Bush says America's safer after attacking Iraq. Bush says Saddam had something to do with 9/11. Bush says this, etc. And here we are right back in it. Trump says the Iranians attacked the ships. No, you must correct that every time, even if you don't want to call it a lie. You at least have to say eyewitnesses say the opposite. And if you don't give that context, that's how we get lied into a war.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we will interview a Justice Democrat and hear his case for primarying a incumbent Democrat.
Yep, and it's, look, one of the guys in leadership, it's ELIOT Engel. So this is very, very serious, and I love it. So come right back and we'll talk about it. We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks, a couple of quick comments before we go to the interview. Eduardo writes in, so happy that you guys are coming to my area. Whoop, whoop, hello, TYT land. So we are in fact going to Miami. So that's for the presidential debates. That's June 26th and 27th. Please RSVP to join us at tyt.com/rally. And if you want to help Anna get there, tyt.com/yes. Your contributions go a long way and we'll make that decision soon. Red Canary says Trump's ignorance is his greatest strength to Republican politicians for this very reason. They can push every agenda they want, including war. That is also why they picked George W. Bush and Ronald Reagan. It is not an accident that Republicans pick stupid leaders, because they are not leaders. All they have to do is what the donors tell them to do. That's why they like empty vessels. That's also why they had Sarah Palin. There's a reason why they're the stupid party. Okay. And then finally on Twitter, Amy Jean Progressive Queen says, I'm going to summer school, but at least I plan my classes around the show so I can watch the Damage Report and the Young Turks live.
Damn.
I love that. And if you're a member, check out Damage Report live. You can see that every morning.
And No Filter, not live, but you can check it out wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right. You can get the podcast for free. You can watch the video as a member. tyt.com/trial to get 1 week free membership. So check that out as well. Okay, so now let's go to our guest. Joining us now is JAMAAL BOWMAN. He is the new Justice Democrat, and he is challenging ELIOT Engel, who's a 30-year incumbent in the House. And JAMAAL, welcome to the Young Turks.
Thank you, Cenk. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I love that you're running. There's two reasons why I love that you're running. One is because ELIOT Engel has voted for a lot of wars and bills that cause wars. He was against the Iran deal in the first place. So initially, I guess he agreed with Donald Trump. He voted for the Iraq war. He has voted for banking deregulation. So I got no interest in ELIOT Engel. And secondly, I'm excited because of you. You created a middle school in New York. It has won awards and placed at the top in New York. So let's start there, and then I want to turn to why you got into politics in the first place. So tell us about your middle school, how you started it, and what it is.
So once again, thanks for having me. So I started my middle school with a group of parents and teachers in 2009. We actually wrote a proposal for an idea that we had of an innovative middle school that was culturally responsive and focused on teaching the whole child. So we wrote the proposal in 2008. We submitted it to the New York State Department of Education, and we opened it in 2009. Prior to that, I was an educator for 8 years. I taught elementary school, and I was a dean of students at the high school for arts and technology. So spending all that time in public education and meeting so many different teachers and parents and hearing their frustrations about what they wish they could have in a school led me to pursue school leadership and led me to opening the school in 2009.
So in 2015, it ranked first in New York City for improved test score average. And so that's amazing. But the twist here is that you cut suspensions down by 2/3. And so that is non-traditional. A lot of people say, no, you gotta be tough on the kids and you gotta punish them and show them who's boss. You went in the other direction and got great results. So tell us what you did there and why you did it.
Just like in a family, the most important ingredient is love, right? So we start with love in our school. We love our kids, we love our teachers, we love our families, and we love our community. And it's that love that drives everything that we do. So when you approach education from a love perspective, you're going to go a restorative justice approach as opposed to a punitive approach. Now, restorative justice is all about kids are kids. Kids are going to make mistakes. Kids do stupid things. That's what kids do. That's what we all did. But it's not about marginalizing the kid or dismissing the kid after they do something wrong. It's about educating them. Discipline is about education. So it's about teaching them about what they did wrong. It's about helping them to take responsibility, but then it's about re-inviting them back into the community so they don't feel ostracized. So we didn't just decrease suspensions, we also created a culture of community within the school so that kids and teachers took ownership of the school at a deeper level. So it wasn't just about academics, it was about community building.
So Jamaal, you're doing a great job with schooling. I saw your initial launch video. I mean, look, I love every part of it. It's strong, it's smart.
Thank you.
But that's not surprising. But why get into politics?
So I've been an educator for 20 years, and everything we do at the school level comes from federal policy, right? So federal policy impacts state policy, impacts district policy. And then as an educator on the ground, your hands are tied. You can't really meet the needs of the kids in front of you because you're too busy worried about compliance, right? And our kids have diverse needs, they have diverse gifts, and we have to nurture those gifts. So I became frustrated with that, particularly with the weaponization of standardized tests in our schools. So after No Child Left Behind, which my opponent voted for in 2001, schools were now mandated to give annual standardized tests in grades 3 through 8. So learners develop at different levels, right? So some kids are ready to take a test in 3rd grade, but many kids are not. But with this new policy, they were forced to take the test. And then if they didn't do well on the test, now you have a child feeling that they're not smart, having low self-esteem, and now it's impacting the rest of their schooling. So for me, the reason why I'm running is because in order to change what happens in schools, you got to change federal policy. And if I'm able to do that, if I'm able to get in that position, change federal policy and start having bigger conversations, not just about education, but about poverty, about community schools, about the bridge between healthcare and education. See, we isolate schools too much, and schools can't do it alone. It's about the intersectionality of these different issues. We need educators to be in Congress to talk in that way. Unfortunately, lawyers and corporate actors cannot talk in that way because they don't have the experience.
Yeah. JustDemocrats.com/Jamaal. Look, if you care about these issues, you got to give to Jamaal no corporate PAC money because he's a Just Democrat. Elliot Engel, on the other hand, your opponent, 1% of his donations have come from small donors. 99% have come from large donors and corporations. Gee, I wonder who he represents.
And we raised more than him in terms of small dollar donations within a few hours of our launch today than he did all last year. So we've already beaten the number of small dollar donations he's gotten in all of last year, and this is just our first day.
So Jamal, what concerns you most about Eliot Engel after his 30 years in Congress? And look, he's chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, so that is a very important position.
Yeah, I think part of it is, throughout his career, he's been a lot more focused on foreign affairs than focused on what's happening in the district, right? So we have high poverty rates within the district. We have high asthma rates. We have high obesity rates. We have high incarceration rates. The rent burden is killing people economically. So we have a lot of challenges here in the district, and it's a segregated, disengaged district. Only about 9% of the vote comes out. You have the wealthy living on one side, the poor living on another, and there are no district initiatives and district mission to really bring people together and really build the economy of the entire district. In addition to that, my opponent voted for the 1994 crime bill, which decimated Black and brown communities and Black and brown families. As I mentioned before, he voted for No Child Left Behind, which killed teachers' unions and led to privatization in public schools. As you mentioned, he voted for the war in Iraq, which led to trillions of dollars being spent, thousands of American lives lost, and we have children here struggling to find healthy food options in their communities. It's just a constant focus on war, the constant focus on, he voted to deregulate Wall Street, right? So that put wealth in the hands of a very few, while the majority of us continue to struggle. So those are a few of the issues, but honestly, it's less about him and what he's done and more about the movement we're trying to build within the district. If we could get people excited about what we're doing and about new ideas and a new vision, like Medicare for all, that's a human right. It should not be debated. Housing is a human right, should not be debated. Childcare is a human right, should not be debated, especially because it's oppressive policies that got into this place. So we have to now do the reverse, work from the ground up, and take back Congress and take back our country.
So strong, man. I love it. JustDemocrats.com/Jamal. Look, one last thing. On the issue of both donations and foreign policy, Eliot Engel takes a tremendous amount of money from defense contractors. Do you think that might create a conflict of interest for him as he sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and continues to vote for wars?
Absolutely. So initially, he was not against the insurgents that's happening in Yemen. And we just recently had an arms deal to Saudi Arabia. Now he's against it, but initially he was not. And again, what's happening in Venezuela, what's happening in different parts of the world, is a constant investment in bombs and tanks and war. And it's less of an investment in our children, our schools, and healthcare, and improving the quality of life. America is the most powerful country in the world. We need to use that power to build humanitarian efforts throughout the world, not to intimidate, not to disrupt. We need to bring people together in love and humanity as opposed to bombs and wars.
JAMAAL Bowman brought restorative justice to a school in New York. He's now looking to bring that restorative justice to Congress. Looking forward to it. JustDemocrats.com/Jamal to make that happen. Thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Cenk. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, unfortunately, more madness in the world. And of course, oftentimes brought to you by Donald Trump. But there is a bit of a devastating story coming out of South Bend as well. And unfortunately, one more time, it's cops with racial issues in South Bend, and this time someone got killed. So we'll tell you about it when we come back.